Good day, and you are welcome to today's lesson. We want to continue from where we ended with our previous lesson. We are going to continue with weaning. After the baby is being born, it's only breast milk that you have to feed the baby for 6 months. After the 6 months, you need to introduce our local feed to the baby so that the baby will become used to our local food that we normally take in. So the baby grows older, and then the demand for nutrition and then other food nutrients increases, and therefore the breast milk is not sufficient for the baby. So the baby have to take in our local food to gain its normal weight. The time or the age many mothers begin the introduction of the food varies depending on the child demand. And the common ones that we normally rely on is the porridge, our local porridge that we prepare with corn dough, whilst breastfeeding is still in progress. So now let's look at the definition for weaning. We are saying that it's a process of getting a baby used to our porridge or other semi-solid food known as weaning. And in any society, it is an integral part of the child's upbringing. So depending on where the child finds him or herself in, then the food that is grown in that locality, the child learns to use that food. Or we can also say that weaning is a process whereby food other than the breast milk or artificial milk are introduced to the baby. So during this time, we are saying that the weaning food are introduced to the baby in small quantities, gradual, and then the baby becomes used to it, and then the breast milk is taken off totally. And then normally the weaning starts around the 5th and then the 6th month of the child. So what are the reasons why we do weaning? We are saying that at that age, the breast milk is not enough for the baby. So by age 4 months onwards, to meet the growth demand, you need to introduce other food. It helps the mother also to leave the baby with other people and then can go to work. The child now knows and becomes used to what? Our local food. What are the signs that will tell you that the baby is now ready for weaning? You could see that the baby will not spend much time on the breast as the baby used to do. So there's shortening time of what? Breastfeeding. So the baby starts struggling with you during breastfeeding. It will let you know that the breast milk is not enough for the baby. And then when you are also holding the food and you are eating, you see the child tries to reach out for the food that you are eating. The child also reaches out for anything that he or she finds and then put it in the mouth. All these signs will tell you that, yes, the baby is ready for feeding. Then another point that you have to take note is the child's age. By 6 months, the child is ready. Everything around the child shows that, yes, the breast milk is not enough for the baby, with the exception of premature baby. As the baby is pretermed, you could see that the age that the baby will attain the 6th month will be different from a child that is born at 10. Then the stage of development. We've done stages of growth and development. So the stage of the development also tells you that the child is ready to feed. You know that from age 5 to 9 months, the child starts having teething. And when this child is having the teeth, will tell you that, no, the breast milk alone is not enough for the baby. And then also the digestive system is also ready and well matured to accommodate any other feeds apart from the breast milk. Then the health status of the mother and then the child. When we consider the health status of the mother, then we can start the weaning. So if, for instance, the mother is so anemic, then the mother cannot continue to breastfeed the baby than to start our local feed. If the child is also having any physical abnormality, the child cannot continue with the breast milk than to go for what? Our local prepared food. And then preterm babies to also start the weaning process very late. Financial status of the family. Most of us, because we have the money, we prefer to go in for what? The artificial feed than the breast milk. So here is the case. You have the money. You can afford by buying the local food or the artificial milk, and then we introduce the child to the weaning food. What are the factors that influence the weaning process? The geographical, climate conditions of the community influence our weaning process. So depending on the climate that we find ourselves in, that is what the child will adapt to, and then the food that is being grown in that area is what the child will try to take in. Then previous experience of weaning. When we talk of previous experience of weaning, for instance, as somebody who has given birth to the second child, the first child, the process that the first child went through will be different from that of the second child. Maybe the first child was weaned around 4 months. But now with the second child, because of this exclusive breastfeeding, that has gone down well with the mother will try to start the weaning at 6 months exactly. And then the kind of food that was introduced in the first child will be different from that of what? The second child. Then dietary pattern of the family. Looking at our various climatic zone that we find ourselves, the food that we take in the southern sector is different from that in the northern sector. So if the family is used to our local cereals, the child will also be used to the local cereals. But when you find yourself outside the locality of your family, then the food that you also find at that area, you depend on that one. Then cultural beliefs. Cultural beliefs concerning food in the locality. You see some areas, they are saying that you don't have to take in egg if you are a child. So our cultural belief also influence. Meanwhile, this child needs this egg. This child needs calcium. And you know, with snails, we have a lot of calcium in it. But in some locality, you are not supposed to take snail. So the cultural belief of the locality also affects the weaning process. Then availability of child welfare clinic. And I hope you'll be asking yourself, how does child welfare clinic influence weaning process? Child welfare clinic influence weaning process because if the child is not having adequate nutrients, it will be determined by the child welfare clinic, and then they advise the family or the mother on the kind of food that should be given to the child. And then the economic status of the parents, as I've explained earlier on. If you have the means of buying other food apart from the local food, then the child will be introduced to those kind of food. Good. Let's continue. We are now going to look at types of weaning food. As I'm saying, we are introducing the child to our local prepared meal. So that is what we are going to look at. So we have the local processed food that we normally call the weaning maize. And then we also have the canned one that comes already prepared and then we feed the child with it. So now let's look at the locally prepared weaning maize. So dyed from our local available food stuffs. We have stable food, and I believe you can name some of our stable food that we have in our locality. So we have the corn, we have the granuts, we have the millets, we have the rice, and then you can mention them. But when we come to this local preparation of our weaning maize, we have the various requirements that we need. So if you are going in for the corn, then you take 4 margarine tin of corn and then half margarine tin of granite, depending on how you want it. If you want the millet, you go for the millet. You want the soya bean, you go for the soya bean. Then you mix about 2 or 3 of this our local food, and then you blend them together, and then you put it down for the child. So now let's look at the preparation. After you've gotten your corn and then the granuts, roast the corn and then the granuts, mill it, allow it to cool down, then you bag it and then put it in the refrigerator. With the bagging, you can bag it in the size that when you pick one, you cook everything. Not that you bag it in big quantities, that you take it and then you leave some and then bring it out of the fridge, put it down for some time. No, you take the quantity that you can cook all together and then you put it in the fridge. So we also have, based on the mixture that you want, you can mix about 4, 3, 5 form of our staple food. And all these, after getting the plant protein, you can also add the animal protein to it. So without the animal protein, the food or the weaning maize will not be complete. So we need to add what? Our local protein or animal protein. So the plant protein and then the animal protein put together help us or help the child to get the required protein. Then we can also have the animal protein, vegetable protein, and then our cereals. So depending on how you want the mixture, you prepare it accordingly. We are looking at the principles. Do they have any principle that is guiding this weaning? Yes, we have principles that guides our weaning. And when you are about to wean the child, you have to follow these principles so that the child will get the adequate nutrients, and then the child will grow and develop well. So let's look at the first principle. We are saying that with the first principle, the food should be in a gradual process. Baby is not likely to be upset with the physical and then emotional. So when you do it gradual, then the baby will become used to the food and then the baby will take it. There is no discomfort in the mother's breast as the breast milk gradually tend to dry. So you don't just stop the breastfeeding, but with time, as you introduce the child to the local food, slowly and gradually the baby now gets off the breast, and there will be no engorgement with pain. And then we're also saying that you have to introduce all new food during the daytime in a small quantity, small teaspoon at a time. If you just fetch plenty at a time and then the child starts reacting to it, you may not know. So you will say that give small quantity, start with a teaspoon, and then later on you increase the amount of feed. Start it during the daytime so that you can detect any allergic reaction. And then we are saying that give simple food to the child at the beginning. And if the child shows dislike, you don't force the child to take the food. And then you shift from one food to the other within 1 week or 2 weeks and make sure the child is used to the food. And then you also have to offer variety of food. You need to offer variety of food. And the food should be soft and smooth. And it should be given at the right temperature. Some of us, the food is very warm or hot, and then we are feeding the child with it. But allow the temperature to cool down before you wean the child. They need to avoid what? Spices, especially with onion. That will lead to what? Abdominal upset. The parents should remain calm, or the mother should remain calm and never struggle with the baby during feeding. And the child should not be what? Underfed or overfed. We are saying that we shouldn't start what? Weaning process when the child is sick. Because when the child is sick and then you start feeding, there is anorexia. So you may say that the child is not taking in the food, but it's because of the sickness. That is why the child is not getting used to the food. So we are saying that before you start the food, make sure the child is well and there is no form of what? Anorexia in the child. Absolutely what? Cleanliness during feeding and then preparation of the food. And then most children all children, I would say, are very, very attractive to colors. So we are saying that their food should be colorful. Should be colorful so that the food will attract them to eat. What are the problems associated with weaning? Number one is infection. And this will lead to diarrhea. And that is why most of the time, when they start the weaning process, around 6-7 months, you see the children coming up with what? Gastroenteritis. All because our water and then the foodstuffs that we use are mostly contaminated. So we are saying that you need to ensure what? Clean environment during preparation of the food and then feeding of the child. And then underfeeding, because the child is crying, child doesn't take in enough food, and then the weight gain will not be there. So we are saying that we should make sure that we feed the child at the right time, and then we shouldn't underfeed the child. Other than that, the child will develop or have marasmus or kwashiorkor. Overfeeding too is very bad in the children. They can have colicky pain. They can have discomfort, distended abdomen. Regurgitation and vomiting is very common when the child is overfed. The diet should be rich in fat, and then if the diet is rich in fat, it causes delay in and then indigestion. And all these things brings about the discomfort and then the colicky pain. And then constipation. If you are not feeding the child with the right nutrients, constipation will set in. Ignorance of the parents. Some of them will not know the right nutrients or the quality of food that they are supposed to give to the child. And this may lead to infection in the child. So, what education do you think you can give to the parents? And then any significant others in relation to the feeding and prevention of problems associated with weaning? What are some of the education that we can give to these parents? Okay, let's go. Good. You need to educate them to carry out exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life of the child. Ensure good hand hygiene during the eating and the preparation of the food. regular and thorough washing of hands by the mother. And you need to wash the hands of the baby too. They need to educate the mother that introduction of new food to the child milk should be in bits, as we said earlier on in the principle. You give the food in bits, not a chunk food at a time. You give the food in bits. You need to educate them on the need to feed a child with what? Easily digestible food. You know, you are starting from breast milk. So I always say that the texture of the food that will be given should be similar to that of the breast milk initially. Then as the child grows, you increase what? The solidity of the food. You need to teach the mother on the need to preserve the nutritional values during the what? The preparation. We shouldn't overcook or undercook the food so that it will take the nutrition or the nutrients that the baby requires away from the food. We need to provide a child with good, nutritious, and then frequent what? Diet. You know, the stomach capacity is not big enough, so we feed them in bits at least 4 times a day. Good, nutritious food. We feed them in bits in addition with what? Fruits. You need to educate them on hygienic preparation and then handling of food. They need to exercise tolerance in feeding the child. Some of us, we struggle with them because the child is not taking the food. We just hold them and then we restrain them and then feed them. It is wrong. We need to what? Exercise what? Tolerance. Children normally take one food, they will play and then come back for another food. So we are saying that if you don't have time, you don't have to start feeding. Have tolerance, patience for the baby during feeding. Then, leftover food should not be given to the child again. So I'm saying that take small quantity that the child will be able to take all at a time. Avoid the use of what? Leftover food. Encourage the mother on helping the child to develop what? Good eating habits and practices. So when you are feeding or the child is about to feed, get a table and chair and then put the food on the table for the child, and then you assist the child in feeding. Then they need to educate the mother to prepare the meal about 20 minutes before eating. All this is done to what? Ensure the right temperature of the food. So just for instance, you are in a hurry, the child needs food, and then you just prepare the food and then you put it down for the child. The temperature will not be ensured. So we are saying that prepare the food 20 minutes before eating time. And there should be happiness during feeding time. There should be happiness. The child should be ready to eat. And then you need to educate the individual to practice what? Improve income, to upgrade their nutritional status. So here is the case, you are not working. So the kind of food that you are giving to the child is not enough. We are saying that there should be some income generating activity that will help you to upgrade, to increase the what? The nutritional status of the food that you are giving to the child. And then when the child says, I'm not eating, we don't have to force the child to feed. Thank you very much for this topic. So that is that for weaning. So we've seen weaning, and then we are going to start with another major topic.